I like to start with the announcement that I sent out. I thought I sent it out last night. I don't know what's going on. But when I came here, it said it was a draft earlier. I thought it said it posted and whatever, but I did send out an announcement. It's week 5. We're covering lesson 4, layer basics. I did link out to the Photoshop user guide on layer basics in the announcement. 25% progress reports are due really soon. They're already bugging me for them, so they're probably due in a couple days. So if you have any missing work, please submit it right away. Don't forget that Fall Fest is this week. It's Thursday, September 21st from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. It'll be outside unless there's rain. The rain location is Riverbend Arena. You are welcome. There's going to be food and fun, face painters, caricaturists, balloon artists. I can say that word, I promise. Inflatables and contests and all kinds of fun. So I hope you get a chance to take in Fall Fest. It will be lots of fun. Okay, let's hop into this week's lesson. Lesson 4 is all about layers. We have a really fun in-class assignment today at the end of my lecture, and show you just how fun layers can be to work with. Layers are powerful. They really make Photoshop the awesome tool that it is. So let's talk layer basics. So you can use layers in Photoshop to make what are called non-destructive edits by stacking images, text, or vector graphics one on top of the other without mixing the pixels of any of them. We talked about destructive and non-destructive ways of editing your photo. Layers make non-destructive edits so easy. You can use layers to perform tasks such as compositing multiple images, adding text to an image, or adding vector graphic shapes. You can add layer styles for special effects, such as a drop shadow or a glow, or to sharpen objects. You can also change the opacity of a layer to make the content on it partially transparent. In the image that you see here, you can see how the sharp details in this nature photo really make the bird, the subject, and everything stand out. On this photo, you can see they're performing a non-destructive edit by using layers to highlight the details by using the unsharp mask filter. To use the layers panel, you just go to Windows, Layers, make sure it's open. You can use the panel to view, create, edit layers, layer groups, and layer effects in your image. You turn on the panel by navigating to Window and then going to Layers. On a PC or Windows computer, you can push F7. You use the Layers panel to create a new layer or duplicate a layer, to work with the layer group, to convert to smart objects, and to add layer effects. You can also use this menu to adjust the size of the thumbnails. You select the preferred thumbnail and use the right-click option to select the right size. So here we see the layers panel in all of its glory. We have A right here is your layers panel menu. B right here is the layer filters. C is the layer group. D is where you can expand or collapse layer effects. And E is the actual layer effects once they're expanded. So there's several techniques for non-destructive editing. Non-destructive editing allows you to make changes to an image without overwriting the original image data, which remains available in case you want to revert to it. Because non-destructive editing doesn't remove data from the image quality doesn't degrade when you make edits. And you can perform non-destructive editing in Photoshop in lots of ways. You can work with adjustment layers. Adjustment layers apply color and tonal adjustments to an image without permanently changing the pixel values. You can transform with smart objects. Smart objects enable non-destructive scaling, rotating, and warping. You can filter with smart filters. Filters applied to smart objects become smart filters and allow for non-destructive filter effects. You can adjust variations, shadows, and highlights with smart objects. So shadow, highlight, and variation commands can be applied to a smart object as a smart filter. You can retouch on a single layer. You can use the clone stamp, the healing brush, spot healing brush, content aware patch, content aware move tools, and these let you retouch non-destructively on a separate layer. You want to make sure to select sample all layers in the options bar for the best results, and you can discard any unsatisfactory retouching if necessary. You can also edit in Camera Raw. So adjustments to batches of RAW, JPEG, and TIFF images preserve the original image data. Camera Raw stores adjustment settings on a per image basis separately from the original image files. You can open Camera Raw files as smart objects. Before you can edit Camera Raw files in Photoshop, you have to configure settings with them in the actual Camera Raw space. And once you edit a Camera Raw file in Photoshop, you can't configure Camera Raw settings without losing changes. So opening Camera Raw files in Photoshop as smart objects actually enables you to reconfigure a Camera Raw setting at any time, even after you edit the file. You can crop non-destructively. After you create a cropping rectangle with the crop tool, you can select hide from the options bar to preserve the cropped area in a layer, restore the cropped area anytime by choosing image reveal all, or by dragging the crop tool beyond the edge of the image. The hide option is unavailable for images that contain only a background layer. You can also mask. Layer and vector masks are non-destructive because you can re-edit the mask without losing the pixels they hide. Filter mask lets you mask out the effects of smart filters on smart objects. Smart object layers. You can organize your layers in layer groups. So layer groups help you organize a document in Adobe Photoshop so it's easier to find text and other design elements as you create. Layer groups also make it easier to work with several layers at once. So here's an example of organizing some layer groups. You would open the layers panel and notice how each layer displays a thumbnail that indicates the type of content on the layer, like we see here, such as T for type or a thumbnail for an image. Here, the July 1st, August 31st type layer has been clicked. And then the logo ellipse layer was shift clicked to select all 4 logo layers, including the Pride Festival and logo line. Next, you would create a new group at the bottom of the layers panel, or create new group at the bottom of the layers panel was clicked. The new group name was double clicked and the name was changed to logo. The arrow next to the logo layer group was clicked to see how the layers are now organized into a collapsible group. So here we see them collapsed. Here they group the city names. The 4 type layers that included the city names were selected. The layers panel menu was clicked, a new group from layers was chosen, and then the new group was named cities. Here they group the sponsors. A sponsor group was created by clicking create a new group from the bottom of the layers panel and naming the new group sponsors. If you shift click sponsor 1 through sponsor 5 and then control click on Windows or command click on a Mac to select the black rule layer, you can drag the selected layers into the new group. You can also group images. So first you want to make sure kind is selected from the menu just below the layers tab as shown here. And then you can filter layers by the type of content they contain. Click the image icon to filter for image layers. Shift click to select the 3 paint splash image layers and use one of the methods described in the previous steps to group the layers and name the group. You click the image icon again to turn off the filter and show all the layer types. When you're working with grouped layers, you want to choose the Move tool from the toolbar. Make sure the Auto Select option is not checked. Then click the logo group in the Layers menu. You can move the logo from one side of the poster to the center. Layer groups make it easier for you to work with multiple layers at once. For example, you can change the opacity or set the blend mode for all the layers in a group. And if you want to work through that tutorial, I have the link right here. Now we're going to watch, I think I've got 4 videos that I want to watch tonight. Yes. And before we go into the classroom, the in-class assignment. So first, let's watch a video on how to make a layer mask from a selection. There we go.
If there's one key to getting better at Photoshop, it's layer masking. So we've put together this short tutorial series to help you with layer masking basics. I'm Jan Kabili from Adobe's Learn team, and I'm excited to be your guide for this short course. In this tutorial, I'll show you the fastest way to make a layer mask by starting with an automatic selection and turning it into a layer mask. Along the way, you'll learn the best way to replace a photo background as we take an image from this to this. Now, you don't need a lot of experience with Photoshop before you take this course, but you'll get the most out of it if you're familiar with the basics of layers and selections. In the meantime, let's get started making a layer mask from a selection. The image we'll be working with has 2 layers. This photo of a photographer in front of a fence on the top layer, and this blurred cityscape on the bottom layer that we're going to use to replace the fence and give the photographer a brand new background. Now, you might think that the best way to replace the fence would be to erase it, but that would permanently alter the image, which would make it difficult to change our minds if we wanted to take the image in a different direction later. So instead of erasing the fence permanently, we'll use a layer mask to just hide the fence temporarily. How are we going to make that layer mask? In this tutorial, we'll use the simplest way to create a layer mask, which is to make an automatic selection and then turn that selection into a mask. We'll start here in the Layers panel and make sure that the top layer, the photographer layer, is highlighted, because this is the layer to which we want to add a layer mask. Then we'll make a selection of the photographer. We could use any selection method, but Select Subject is a good choice because it's an effortless, automatic method, and it usually does a good job when there's a dominant subject to select, like the photographer in this image. So we'll go up to the Select menu and choose Subject, and that applies the Select Subject command. Now, if you take a look at the edge of the photographer, you can see these moving dotted lines, which are called the marching ants. And they're showing us that there's a pretty good selection all around the photographer, and even in this small area above her arm where the fence is showing through. So we're done making the selection. Now we're going to tell Photoshop to automatically turn this selection into a layer mask with just one click. To do that, we'll go to the bottom of the Layers panel and click this icon that looks like a circle inside of a rectangle. This is the Add Layer Mask button. That caused Photoshop to make a layer mask, which you can see here in this new thumbnail that's on the photographer layer. The next step is optional, but if you want to get a better view of this layer mask, you can hold the Option or Alt key and click on that layer mask thumbnail, and that will show the layer mask here in the document window. And here you can really see that on the mask, the area that was selected is white, and the area that was not selected is black. Photoshop added the black to the mask automatically because a selection was active when the layer mask was created. And that saved you time and effort of manually adding black and white to the mask by brushing or applying a gradient to the mask or making a selection and filling it, some of which you'll do in other tutorials in this series. Now, it's important to remember that black on a layer mask hides content on the masked layer, and white on a layer mask shows content on the masked layer. So let's go back to the regular view to see what that means for this image. Again, I'll Option or Alt click on the layer mask thumbnail. As you can see, the black part of the layer mask is hiding the area all around the photographer so the cityscape can show through. and the white part of the layer mask is showing the photographer. And that's exactly the result we wanted. So we're pretty much done. But that was a lot, so let's recap the top 4 things I'd like you to remember from this tutorial. Number 1, a quick way to make a layer mask is to make an automatic selection and then convert that selection into a mask. Number 2, this not only makes a new layer mask, it also populates the mask with black and white, black where there was no selection and white where there was a selection. Number 3, black on a layer mask hides content on the masked layer, and white on a layer mask shows content on the masked layer. And finally, the result of this quick technique is a non-destructive, reversible layer mask that you can change at any time. And it gives you a great way to replace the background of an image.
Yes, very good. Now let's watch a video on how to refine a layer mask once it is placed.
One of the best things about a layer mask is that you can edit it. So if a layer mask isn't just right at first, you can fine-tune it. I'm Jan Kabili from Adobe, and in this tutorial, I'll introduce you to how to refine a layer mask. One thing layer masks are used for is combining images to create imaginary scenes. In this tutorial, we'll combine this photo and this photo to create this scene. We'll do that by adding and then refining a layer mask so it hides all the bits of white around the tree, which will make the resulting photo composite look more convincing. Knowing how to fine-tune a layer mask will help you in other situations too. You can apply what you learn here whenever you need to make a mask or a selection more precise. For example, when you're adjusting details in a photo or cutting out a person to use in another image. So let's get started learning how to fine-tune a layer mask. Here's the image we're going to use in this tutorial. On the top layer is this tree with a white background, and what we want to do is use a layer mask to hide that white background so that we can see through there to the lake on the layer below. We're going to start with the same technique that we covered in an earlier tutorial in this series, so if you've been following along, this should be simple. We're going to select the tree layer, and then we'll go up to the Select menu at the top of the screen, and we'll choose Subject. And that will cause Photoshop to make a selection around the tree. It's a pretty rough selection, as you'll see in a minute. Next, we're going to turn that selection into a layer mask by going to the bottom of the Layers panel and clicking the Add Layer Mask button. Now we have a layer mask on the tree layer. You can see its thumbnail here in the Layers panel. In the image, you can see that there's still quite a bit of white around the edges of the tree and among the leaves. But that's okay, because we're going to be able to eliminate that by refining this layer mask in the Select and Mask workspace. The Select and Mask workspace is a separate interface from this regular Photoshop workspace. To open it, we'll first check that we have the layer mask thumbnail selected on the tree layer, not the image thumbnail. And then we'll go up to the Select menu and we'll choose Select and Mask. This is the Select and Mask workspace. Over on the left, there's an abbreviated toolbar with tools you can use to refine your mask. In the center, there's a live preview, and over on the right, there are more refinement controls. A good place to start here is by choosing a way to view the mask. You can choose any of these views. But when I'm combining images using a layer mask, I like to choose On Layers because it lets me see more than one layer at a time, so I get a really good sense of what my final image is going to look like. There are lots of features in this workspace, and we're not going to look at all of them in this tutorial, but I do want to show you a couple that I use often when I'm combining images with a layer mask. One of those is this radius slider. Take a look now around the edges of the tree, and you can see that there's a lot of white there all around. But watch what happens when I drag the radius slider over to the right. I'll take it pretty far over. Now, a lot of the white at the edges has disappeared from view. What's happened is that Photoshop has widened the area it's using to detect the edges of leaves, and when it finds those areas, it's filling in with black and shades of gray that hide those areas from view so we can see more of the lake image behind. Now, there still are quite a few white bits inside of the tree. A useful tool for handling areas like this is over in the toolbar on the left, the second tool from the top that's called the Refine Edge Brush tool. I'm going to select that, and then I'll come into the image. I have a fairly big brush, and I'm just going to start dragging over the tree. And notice that as I do, a lot of those white bits are disappearing from view, so we can see through to more of the lake image behind. And it only takes a few minutes to hide almost all the white. And notice when I release my finger from the mouse that even the trunk of the tree and the ground have been modified. So I think this is a great result. And although there are lots of other tools I could use, I'm happy with this as is. So the last thing to do here in Select and Mask Workspace is to output a refined layer mask. To do that, we'll go over to the column on the right, and at the very bottom are the output settings. We'll go to the Output To menu, and from here, you might choose Layer Mask, in which case Photoshop would replace the original layer mask that we made at the beginning of the tutorial with this new refined mask. Or you could choose New Layer with Layer Mask, and that way you'll have both layer masks back in Photoshop. So let's do that, and then click OK. And the Selected Mask Workspace closes, and here we are back in Photoshop. So as I said, we have two layers with layer masks. We don't have to keep them both, but I wanted to show you the difference between where we started, which was this initial layer mask, and the layer mask we have now, which is a lot more complex and precise and allows us to see a lot more of that lake image behind the tree. So I think you can see how powerful the Selected Mask Workspace can be for refining your images. Don't forget to give it a try the next time you are using a layer mask to combine photos.
We're going to talk the in-class assignments on blending modes, but layer masks are awesome. As you can see how powerful that was and how we could add this tree kind of in the middle of this lake by using the masks. Now, this really cool image is two images combined and using a layer mask to turn it into something totally and completely different. So let's check out how it was done. Let's get out of that wasn't right. Let's see here. Did I grab the wrong? Yeah, here we go.
Not every layer mask starts with a selection. Brushing on a layer mask is another way to add black and white to a layer mask to hide and show different parts of a layer. In this tutorial, we'll use the brush tool on a layer mask to combine different parts of this photo with this photo to create this new image.
So
we'll start
cool.
by making a layer mask from scratch. Then we'll brush on the mask with black to hide part of the masked layer, revealing another world on the layer below. And we'll brush on the mask with white if there are any hidden areas that we want to bring back into view. Hi, I'm Jan Kabili from Adobe, and I can't wait to share this tutorial with you. I hope it will not only teach you a useful technique, but also deepen your knowledge of how layer masks work so that you can use them successfully on your own images. Here's the image we'll use for this tutorial. It has a gate on the top layer and this forest scene on the bottom layer. We're going to add a layer mask to the top layer to the gate so we can hide parts of that to see through to the forest scene below. As we do that, keep in mind that a layer mask is a grayscale element, so the only colors you can add to it are black, white, and shades of gray. Doing that acts as a signal to Photoshop telling Photoshop which parts of the layer you want to show and which you want to hide. One way to add black, white, or gray to a layer mask is with a brush. So let's try that. We have the gate layer selected. We'll go down to the bottom of the Layers panel and we'll click the Add Layer Mask button to add an initial layer mask to the gate layer. Notice that the layer mask thumbnail that represents this mask is white. And that's why you don't see a change in the image yet, because white on a layer mask shows what's on the masked layer. So right now, everything on the gate layer is visible. Now let's paint on this layer mask with black. First, we'll make sure that the layer mask thumbnail, not the image thumbnail, is highlighted here in the Layers panel. Then we'll go over to the toolbar and we'll try to set our foreground color to black. The easiest way to do that is to press D on the keyboard. D sets the default colors when a layer mask is selected, which are white as the foreground color and black as the background color. We want to switch those, so next we'll press X on the keyboard, and now black is the foreground color and white the background color. That's what we want. We want to paint with black, the foreground color. Next, we'll select the brush tool, which is here in the toolbar. And we want a brush that's almost as big as that circular area in the gate. So we'll go up to the options bar for the brush tool and click this icon, which opens the brush preset picker. Here, we're going to drag the size slider over to the right to make the brush bigger. And if you're following along, I'm going to choose a brush that's about 960 pixels in size. I'll leave the brush hardness at about 85%, so there's a bit of a soft edge around my brush. Now, let's go into the image, and with the layer mask still selected, center the brush tip in that circular area of the gate, and click a few times. That's added black to our layer mask, as you can see over here in the Layers panel, and the black on the mask is hiding the corresponding part of the gate layer, so the forest on the layer below is coming through. That looks pretty good, but I'd actually like to hide more of that gate. So I'm going to make my brush tip smaller. You could do that from the brush preset picker again, or just press the left bracket key on the keyboard several times. The left bracket key is located near the P key on most US keyboards. With that smaller brush, I'm going to come over the image and still painting with black on the layer mask, I'm going to hide this area and move all the way down to the sidewalk. And I'll hide part of the sidewalk too by dragging over to the left and then over to the right. And here's a little bit I want to fill in with black too. And doing that is revealing what's on the forest layer below in those areas. Now what happens if you make a mistake and you paint too far with black, for example like this? This is no problem to fix because a layer mask is always editable. Even if you took 30 more steps on this image, you could always come in and remove this little area of black that's hiding part of the wall.
Because it's
To
non-destructive,
do that,
yo.
I'm going to switch my foreground color to white. Over in the toolbar, the foreground color is now black. As before, I'll press X on the keyboard, and that switches the foreground and background colors. So now my brush is loaded with white. And I can just paint with white over that same area where I painted with black on the layer mask before, and the gate comes back into view there. Let's take a look at the layer mask we've made. I'll hold the Option key on a Mac or the Alt key on Windows and click the layer mask thumbnail. Here you can see where we painted with black, and all of that area is hidden on the gate layer, so the forest layer is showing through. Where the layer mask is white, the gate layer is visible. And around the edge of this circle, there's a little bit of gray that comes from the soft edge of the brush tip that we selected. That gray area partially hides what's on the gate layer, so there's a nice soft edge there in the image. Let's go back and look at the image again by Alt or Option clicking on the layer mask thumbnail. And there's our result, a composite of two photos combined with a non-destructive layer mask that you can edit or even remove at any time.
It's magic. It's so confusing when it's got the menu and, okay. Okay, one last video, and then I'm going to work through the in-class assignment is super quick and easy to do, but you have to complete it before you leave class today. So I'm making a note of everyone who's here. If you're not here and you're watching this video at a later date, please reach out to me about the in-class assignment. So last video, and then we'll hop into this really short, really cool in-class assignment.
Another way to create a layer mask is to add a black to white gradient to the mask. This is a great technique when you want a soft, subtle transition between images. In this tutorial, we'll use a gradient on a layer mask to blend this photo with this photo to create this new image. We'll start by adding a layer mask to the top layer, and then we'll add a gradient that applies black, shades of gray, and white to the mask. The black will hide part of the top layer, revealing the photo on the layer below, while the white will show part of the top layer, obscuring the photo that's on the layer below. And the shades of gray in between will partially hide the top layer, creating a soft transition between the two images. Hi, I'm Jan Kabili from Adobe. This is one of my favorite layer masking techniques for creating blended images like fantasy composites or wedding portraits with multiple images. And it brings together much of what you've learned about layer masks so far in this course. So let's take a look at how to use a gradient with a layer mask. In this image, we have two layers. This photograph of a hand with a water droplet on the top layer, and this photo of green hills on the bottom layer. What we'd like to do is to add a layer mask to the top layer, the hand layer, that will allow us to see a combined image that smoothly transitions from the hand at the top down to the green hills at the bottom. Everything you learned about layer masking in other tutorials in this course applies here. The difference is that instead of starting this layer mask with a selection or by painting on the mask, we're going to start with a white to black gradient. With the hand layer selected, we'll go down to the bottom of the Layers panel and click the Add Layer Mask button there. And that adds this layer mask on the hand layer. Now let's put a gradient on this layer mask. First, we'll go to the toolbar and check that the foreground color is white and the background color is black. If you're following along and that isn't true for you, then press the X key on your keyboard and that will switch the foreground and background colors. So I do have white as my foreground and black as my background color. And with that configuration, I'm going to select the gradient tool, which is in the middle of the toolbar. Up at the top in the options bar, you can see that I have a gradient that goes from white to black. If you don't see that, then click the drop down and then open the Basics folder inside of that drop down. And here you have a series of gradients. Click the first one, which is the foreground to background gradient. Now to apply that gradient to the layer mask, I'm going to click in the image and around the center of the hand and drag down to about a third of the way into that black reflection in the water. By the way, the direction and length of the line you draw affects the gradient that you'll have. When I release my mouse, you can see the result. And this is what we were going for. The hand image at the top gradually fading into the landscape image at the bottom. And if you want to see why that's happening, we'll take a look at the layer mask. I'll hold the Option key on the Mac or the Alt key on Windows as I click on the layer mask thumbnail in the Layers panel. Here you see the gradient that was applied to the mask. White at the top is allowing the hand layer to be visible. Black at the bottom is hiding the hand layer, so we see the landscape showing through. And in between, that transition from light gray down to dark gray gives us a dissolve between those two layers. Let's go back and Option or Alt click again on the layer mask thumbnail to see our image. Now, there's one more thing that I'd like to share with you, and that is that you're not limited to using just one method of making a layer mask. For example, even though we started with a gradient on this layer mask, we could paint on the layer mask too. So let's just try that. I'd like to paint in the area of the water droplet to make it more visible. For that, I'll go over to the toolbar and I'll make sure that white is my foreground color. And then I'll go to the brush tool and select that. And I want to use a pretty big, soft brush. I have about a 200 pixel brush at 0% hardness. And with that, I'm going to paint a little crescent of white on the layer mask. And that lets us see more of the content of the hand layer. And so the water droplet looks more distinct. And if you'd like to see the layer mask again, I'll hold the Option or Alt key, click on the layer mask thumbnail, and there you can see the impact of having painted with white on this layer mask. So to recap what we did in this tutorial, we added a layer mask to the top layer in this combination image, and on that layer mask we drew a gradient that goes from white down through shades of gray to black. That layer mask gradient allowed us to gradually and subtly combine two images. And these are just the kind of skills that will help you get great results when you're working with layer masks on your own images.
And look how flippin' easy that was. That's just so cool. Okay, let's talk about your in-class assignment. First, I want to show you the tutorial that it's based on. So if you open up Photoshop, which I'm trying to do, yay, and you search up here, I'm going to put blend to images, and then click get help, blending two images. And the very top thing, you'll see blend two photos. This is it. This is the tutorial. You can click here to download the photo, but this is not what you're going to turn in. You could use this for practice, but I'm going to actually have you do your own composition. And maybe you'll have something to enter in the art show even. We'll have to see. So I've already downloaded this Photoshop file, but if I hadn't, I could just click right here and download it. But I'm going to open it. It's a PSD file. It's on my desktop. And let's see, where are you? There you are. Oh, that's a screenshot that I used. Here it is. I'm going to go ahead and open that. Now, what this is simply a picture of a buffalo with another picture placed on top of it. And I can tell because if I look at over here in my layers, I see the buffalo down here is the bottom layer, and then the image on top. So I'm actually going to minimize this so that, let me do this. I'm going to pull it over out of the way. Okay. So first thing it wants us to do is grab our move tool and move this over the buffalo. Okay. Then if we notice in the layers panel here, I've got the uppermost layer selected. I'm going to see the blend modes. It's this drop-down menu that says normal. I can go in here and try out different blend modes. And you can see as I try them out, they create different effects. And then I can choose the one that I like the most. So I think that one's pretty cool. I click it. Now I've just used a blending mode. So if I turn this off, the layer has nothing to blend with, and it's just a non-destructive way. Turn it on, and now I've got this really cool buffalo with this image blended in the background. Bada bing, bada boom. That's it. It's so easy. So now this is what I want you to do. Okay. Let me pull up the in-class assignment. So if you go into lesson 4, you'll see lesson 4 in-class assignment. Okay. I want you to blend two photos and make an awesome composition, but I want you to use Adobe stock imagery. I want you to find free Adobe stock images. Make sure you choose free from the drop-down menu. I'm going to show you how to do it here in a moment. And then find photos similar to the one in the tutorial. So maybe your subject has a white background. I'm going to show you some things that I chose here in a minute. And then experiment with the blend modes. Once you like your blended image, save it as a PSD file, which is a Photoshop native file, and upload it here to the Blackboard assignment. So I clicked on the Adobe stock link. This is that drop-down menu that I was talking about. I want to make sure it's on free. I want to make sure I'm logged in. Otherwise, I don't get any free stock images. Okay, and then you can see some of the things that I searched. I'm going to search polar bear. Probably not a good choice because it's not really high contrast. But I did find a pretty cool polar bear image here that I think would blend nicely. I clicked the license for free button. In Photoshop, I'm sorry, Adobe Stock is going to prompt me to download and save the file. I'm going to save it as polar bear right here on my desktop. Now I need to find something to blend my polar bear with. And let's just have fun with it. Let's see if we can find some fun confetti. Ooh, we've got gummy worms. I don't know about that. Not a lot of free confetti. And I don't think I spelled it right. Is it 2 F's and 2 T's? Goodness gracious, confetti. Or is it 2 F's and 1 T? Here we go, confetti. It's 1 F and 2 T's. Okay, so now I've got some pretty cool confetti that I can choose from. I'm going to choose. I know I want something that'll really, ooh, I like this. I want something sparkly and fantastic, something that looks magic. Again, click license for free. Adobe prompts me to save it. Spell it right that time. Okay. Now, to make your blended image, you're going to go into Photoshop. I'm going to go ahead and close this. I'm not going to save it. It was so easy. I could do it again if I wanted to. Plus, it's not really any original thought. I didn't pick the images or anything like that. Now I'm going to open first the subject. So first, I'm going to open my polar bear. Okay. I can see my polar bear right here on the layer. I'm going to go ahead and just unlock the layer in case I need to. Click OK. You don't have to do that. But I went ahead and did it. Want to zoom out just a little bit. There we go. Now I can see the whole thing. Now I want to be on my move tool and I want to go to File, Place. Where are you? Oh, I want to be, okay. File. Place embedded. So if I place link, I just link the file. I want to place the embedded file. Sorry, I couldn't see it for some reason. And I'm going to put on the confetti. Okay, I'm going to grab the confetti and make sure that it covers the entire polar bear. And I kind of like it's stronger here, so I'm actually going to place it. Nah, I kind of like that. I'm going to place like this. Now, it doesn't matter if I distort the confetti because it's kind of distorted anyway. So that's what I want to use. And now I'm on that confetti layer. And I just want to open up this drop-down menu, and I'm actually going to push the button and scroll through, and you can see some pretty cool results. So here we have the darken, multiply. Here the confetti is on the inside the polar bear.
That polar bear, that in that one looked like it went through a bakery.
Yeah, I ate a lot of donuts.
Excuse me, can you show me the drop-down menu again, like where you go to get the drop-down menu? I didn't see it.
Okay, I'm right here in the layers panel, and it's where it says normal. That's your blending modes.
Okay.
Do you see it now?
Yeah.
Okay, and then you can just scroll through and pick, like that one looks really cool. Choose one that you think looks nice. That's kind of scary.
Oh God.
But still interesting. Here's rainbow polar bear. And you're going to see all the different varieties that you can get, okay? I also did this, so let's just, I kind of like that he looks like. So yours can look like this. It can have inside the bowl, whatever you want. I also did, so let's do another one. Let's go to File, Open. I mean, these are so fun to do. I think this one turned out a little bit better. I got this giraffe, okay? So now I have my giraffe, I've opened it. I'm gonna go to File, Place Embedded. And for this one, I got a nice sunset. I'm gonna put it right there. I am gonna make this, the image that's on top, a little bigger so that it covers the entire giraffe, like so. And then again, I'm just gonna open up that blend menu, and I'm actually scrolling down. Oh, I have to commit, so I have to say, yes, I want that there. And then now I'm gonna scroll down. I think this looks so cool. So I really like that result. It's automatic. It's like a baby giraffe portrait or something, but you can keep going. And now we see the image inside the giraffe. This one's cool too. I like the way it peeks out of the clouds. That's pretty cool. There's a really fun one where he looks kind of, that's fun, but there's one where he's kind of different colored. There we go. So you can have like a fun colored, different colored giraffe. And the one that I really probably like the most is that one. I just think it looks super cool. So when I've got my combined images and I'm ready to go, oh, I have to commit to it. So I was clicking. So I actually want to click on it. Now it's committed. Now I have this, I would just go to File, Save. It's automatically going to want me to save it as a Photoshop file. And I'll click Save, and that's the file I turn in. And one more time, just for fun, because it's really fun to do, I also played around with this sunflower. So I got a nice sunflower. Again, I'm just going to zoom out. I'm holding down Option on my Mac. I want to see the whole flower. Got the background layer here. I like to unlock my layers. Then I'm going to place my embedded image. And this time I got, I think, some fireflies. There we go. A cool firefly image. Again, I want to adjust it so that it's over the top of my flower. I'm going to commit to that adjustment, click the arrow. And then again, just kind of scroll through, look at the different blending modes. That's fun. Sparkly sunflower. And we don't even have to adjust them. We're just having fun and looking at what blending, how powerful blending modes are, how fun they are to combine images. I really like that.
I'm gonna be honest, the flower looks like it contracted a disease.
In this one, it kind of looks like a petri dish, doesn't it?
Mhm.
And then I can go back up. And I actually think that one's pretty fun and I like it a lot. So this is the one I could save. Again, I have to actually click to commit it because I was scrolling with my arrow keys. And now I can save this as a PSD and upload it to the Blackboard assignment. This in-class assignment is due before you leave class tonight. The other assignment that you have is your regular old hands-on lecture. So work through lesson 4. You are going to start with this starting file and then end with your working and your flat file. And then just upload them here to Blackboard and submit your assignment. You can submit as many files, I think, as you want. You don't have to zip them or compress them or anything. Any questions about your new assignment? It's due next Monday night by 11 p.m. I think that's the 25th. Or any questions about the in-class assignment or how to get stock photos, you have to license them. So you just click that license button. Adobe will automatically have you download the image, you save it, and then you can make your blended image. Any questions? Okay, have fun with it. I can't wait to see the blended images that you come up with. Maybe I'll share them in an announcement, although I'm not figuring out how to add images besides copying and pasting them into Blackboard Ultra. Maybe I can figure that out. or some sort of folder where everybody can see everybody's work. So thank you so much for being here tonight. I hope you enjoy the in-class assignment. Remember, please submit it before you leave. So as soon as you get your assignment in, you can go.